What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And real quick housekeeping note, if you are watching us on YouTube, which I think it just got allowed back on after another timeout from them. But if you are watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe, follow button. And if you're watching us on Rumble, and I'm going to start pushing the BitChute channel now too, because of the issues I've been having with YouTube. So follow us on BitChute, Rumble, and YouTube for now. And then also, if you're listening to us on whatever podcast platform you use, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google, all that stuff, hit it, hit the follow and subscribe button on there too. Really appreciate your support. So we can continue to bring you the kind of conversations I'm about to have with catching up with old friend, Mr. Kevin Moore. What's going on, buddy?
How you doing?
Good. So yeah, we, go back to kind of like, I think we like officially started like talking at one of Paul's 4th of July parties.
Yes.
And then we realized we had the military connection and stuff. So, and then, well, usually when I have somebody on for the first time, I like to get a little bit of a background. I mean, I followed your story on social media and, I love what you do with vans and everything, and I want to get into all that. But when I have somebody on for the first time, I like to get a quick background. So do you remember originally what you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I wanted to be an artist. I thought that would actually an art teacher. I thought that would be an awesome job because I loved and adored my art teachers all through school, and I'm still friends with my high school art teachers to this day.
Nice.
I'm really glad I didn't go that route because my wife is a art teacher, and what I see her going through at her job, I don't think I would have lasted too long putting up with what teachers have to do these days. So it's kind of fortunate that I went down a different path.
Yeah. And then do you remember when it was that you kind of felt the calling to serve your country?
Oh, the calling came when I asked my dad what we had in the bank account for my college fund, and he said he had just pumped it all into the gas tank of the station wagon, so I was going to go be staying with my Uncle Sam. It's a kind of a running joke, although I always knew I was going to end up going into the military. Both my grandfather served, my dad served. We're a pretty pro-military family, and I was Air Force, and fortunately, when I went in, they had some programs that I was really interested in, so it worked out well.
Yeah, you were telling me, you sent me a little bit about like what you originally wanted to go into, and then how Uncle Sam works. It's the needs of the military.
Yeah.
But like, what was it? What was it originally again that you were looking for doing, and then
I went in with a guaranteed job for graphic artist. And after finishing up basic training and everybody was getting their orders, they called me down to CQ and said, hey, we have a breach of contract. Your job has been civilian contracted while you were in training, and so your tech school doesn't exist anymore. So let's see if we can find you something else. And it was kind of funny, but they brought down a captain who was a pilot, and he was on a flight crew. And I had some really, really good scores with my eyesight. And so he sat me down and said he wanted me to go through a class 4 flight physical. Mind you, I'm a little foggy on a lot of this because this was 30 plus years ago. And so he sends me to go get this physical. And I come back and they're like, wow, you've got like superhuman depth perception and all these really good things with your eyes. I still, to this day, like I've got really good eyesight. I barely have any issues. So he goes, we want you to be a B-52 aerial gunner. I was like, man, I don't like heights. The last thing I want to do is go up in a plane, let alone sit in a bubble shooting a machine gun. And so I was kind of like, yeah, that isn't really for me. And the dude was like, but you get wings and you get the cool coat and everything else. And I ended up bailing on that idea, and he was really disappointed like it was like one of those forks in the road. It could have been interesting. I just wasn't interested in going up in planes. So I ended up being an air traffic controller in tech school. And towards the end, I really hated it. And my teacher and I were pretty cool with each other. And she offered to wash me into something else. And so she did. And I ended up becoming a plumber. And that's what I
Nice.
did when I was in the military.
Yeah, I'd say, a gunner is not quite a leap from graphic designer,
Mhm. I mean, it's not like I don't like shooting things and everything else. I was just,
Yeah,
there
but
was
with
this
your feet
one.
on the ground.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There was this one I think it was Steven Spielberg had a show on TV in the 80s before I
Oh, the
left.
amazing stories.
Amazing Stories, yeah. And there was one where there was a cartoonist, and that was me. I was always drawing cartoons. Got welded into the bottom of a bomber, and he was stuck down there, and they had to land the plane with no landing gear. And so they were all like, "Oh man, this dude's doomed," because his whole flight crew survived all these attacks, but he was stuck down there, and they were like all freaking out. And then at the very end, like cartoon wheels popped out of the bottom of the plane, and he ended up like living and all that. And I was just like, that I just remember that episode totally blowing me away right before
Yeah.
going into the Air Force. And then the first thing they turn around and do is tell me they want me to do that. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, man.
I don't know if the
I
cartoon
ain't feeling it.
landing gear is gonna come out. So during your time in um like, I mean, with all the switching around and everything, but I mean, after you kind of got like established for a little bit, like what was some of the oddest things you experienced in the military?
Oddest things. Um, well, I was in the base emergency engineering force, prime beef as a, when you're in a civil engineering squadron, they basically train you how to fight and then drop you into a place to set up and build bases. And as a plumber, you get the illustrious job of setting up field showers and digging urinal pits. So I was stationed at McGuire in New Jersey, and we were right next to Fort Dix. And like for 3, 4, sometimes 5 weeks at a time, they would send us to the bivouacs next door, and they would just let the Rangers beat the daylights out of us and shoot us, and with the miles gear and all that kind of stuff. But um, it was just kind of like, oh wow, it's like laser tag. This is really cool. Only they're actually allowed to really pummel you when they get their hands on you. So it was a lot of fun. Learned a lot of interesting stuff. I never expected that in the Air Force, but it was actually quite an experience. Learned a lot.
Nice. Nice. So similar to like the Marines and the Navy's relationship, the Army and the Air Force.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do a lot together. And then what would you say during your time in was like one of the worst places that you'd say you served at?
Hmm. I would say I just I just am not a fan of New Jersey. I can't stand that place. It was really sad. I was going to go home and get married like an idiot when I was 18, and I was given my orders, and my orders were actually for Hickam in Air Force Base in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And my soon-to-be wife was so upset because it was so far away, and she was worried she was going to miss her family, that I traded my orders for Hawaii for New Jersey with a guy
Oh,
in my class who was from New Jersey and was like, please let me go anywhere but New Jersey. And so, big, huge, huge, huge mistake. I ended up going to New Jersey by choice, and then finding out, yeah, I was not a huge fan of the folks in New Jersey. Ohioans are way friendlier.
yeah, and just the things we do when we're young and in the military, think I gotta get married, I gotta have somebody. Is I gotta
Mhm.
either to live off base or to whatever the benefits are that comes with it, or just because we're lonely. Man, I'm glad I avoided a lot of that.
Yeah, I wasn't so sharp. I mean, I was married for 14 years. I got two great daughters out of the deal, but oof, yeah, that wasn't the brightest thing to do at the time.
Now, have you ever made it to Hawaii though?
Oh yeah. Oh, I absolutely I've actually visited the base, been to Hawaii, and then kicked myself all over again because I was like, oh my God, I could have been here in this paradise, and I chose to go to New Jersey. So yeah, probably one of the dumbest moves I've ever made.
Nice. And then where would you say is one of the best places that you got to serve at?
I was in Biloxi for a while, and I absolutely loved Keesler Air Force Base. The people were really friendly. It was a really nice place to be stationed. I really enjoyed it there. I like warmer weather too, so not a big fan of Cleveland weather.
Oh yeah, me neither, man. My sinuses are already acting up from the weather change we just had. I mean, we knew it was coming, but it was just like,
Oh yeah,
here it is.
it's inevitable. It's not like it's ever going to change, but it's just yeah, it's tough on your body when you're in Cleveland. You're getting older, and all your joints start aching, and you feel your arthritis going through the roof. And yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
I'm predicting the
here we
weather
go.
better than the weatherman, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And then what would you say is like one of your pet peeves that you had with civilians since transitioning out of the military?
Hmm. Pet peeves. Um, uh, Off the top of my head, I was very fortunate. Like during the time that I was in, things were pretty peaceful. I had orders to go over to go to. They actually called me back in when Desert Storm popped off, but I ended up not having to go. So I didn't really have a very tumultuous experience while I was in. So getting out, transitioning to civilian life was actually pretty easy. Went out and got a VA loan for a house and found jobs as a plumber and sewer worker pretty easily. It was really wasn't too big a deal. I can't really say I had too many problems. I mean, other than the paperwork. I mean, I've just had to this day I am still arguing back and forth with the VA trying to get my medical records from some stuff that went on, and to this day I'm still waiting.
Oh man, I gotta connect you with my guy then.
I just coincidentally, I just last week went down and spoke with one of the higher ups at the American Legion, and he's going to try to help me get them. So, but the bureaucracy of every government thing. I mean, especially, I mean, I retired from working from the government, and I'm sure used to the whole wheels of government turn very slowly thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just kind of one of those things. Kind of, I guess if you're asking, yeah, that was probably the one thing that I find the most aggravating. I guess is just the bureaucracy and the slowness of getting anything handled.
Yeah, and then I mean, I guess like too, like um some of what is instilled in us during our time in that, we don't think are, I mean, guess we kind of learned not to sweat a lot of the small stuff. And one thing I've just noticed is that's driven me nuts is all the things that have everybody up in arms, you know. It seems like in our society today that I'm just like, what are you? What, this is a big deal, you know? Especially because I mean, we just had, I mean, the type of the brotherhood and relationships we had in the military, and um, the bonds and stuff that we formed. It was just like, um, we didn't see color, we didn't see, gender or whatever. We all wore the same uniform, and that was all that mattered. So
Yeah.
um, I don't know if if you've seen some of the, sat back looking at the things going on and are like, what, shaking your head.
Well, like any other, I guess any other situation like this, it is kind of funny to listen to people that weren't in the military that are running, that are in the media talking about it as if they know what it feels like or what it what it should be. And yeah, it's definitely misrepresented. That's for sure.
Yeah. And then what is something you feel you'll always carry with you from your time in the military?
Hmm. Um, I would say, I mean, I mean, there was an awful lot of, as I'm sure anybody that's ever been in the military, you've always got fun memories and things like that. I've still got a couple of really good friends that I met while I was in that I'm still good friends with to this day, and I mean that meant the world to me. And the funny thing is we can always kind of look at each other and talk about certain things, and there's just sort of a something that something that that you share with them that you're never going to be able to share with any other kind of friend.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wasn't like a big fan of Facebook at first, and well, I mean, I'm still kind of not like a huge fan of it, but you know, when I was finishing my final deployment, I remember like I was still like, I was doing the MySpace thing back in the day. I liked MySpace. And
Mhm.
then when I was finishing my final deployment, like a bunch of, you know, strangers that ended up becoming family, from all across the country were like, dude, you gotta get on Facebook so we can keep in touch. So, I did it for those intentions. And it's funny, like you said, there's, all of a sudden there's guys that when there was no social media around from my early days of my military career that I've been able to reconnect with. And it's just like not missing a beat, that brotherhood and stuff is still there.
Oh, absolutely. It's a Facebook has its pros and cons, but that's definitely one thing that's great about it is being able to stay in touch with some folks that you wouldn't normally get to see on a regular.
Yeah, for sure. And then what's one of the funniest stories you feel you can share from your time in service?
um, that I can share. Say I can think of a few that I can't. The Well, I guess I could. I guess since I wasn't the one that did it, I can totally tell this one. Um, we were in field training over at Fort Dix with all the miles gear on, and we were in the middle of a simulated firefight, and me and one of my good buddies were protecting a generator from being taken over to keep the lights on our base. And the first sergeant of our squadron was just a bastard. He was just an awful guy, and he just everybody hated him. And there was all kinds of stuff going on, and you could hear gunfire everywhere. And my buddy was like, "Hey, there's Sergeant Collier," and he literally shot him. Set off his gear, and the EET team came and put him in the dead tent for a while, and I was just like, dude. But because there was so much stuff going on, it was just a training exercise. But I was like, oh my gosh, man, it was like, so yeah, that I probably shouldn't even be able to tell you that story, but it was just funny at the time.
So like simulated friendly fire there, huh?
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. And the funny thing was there was a whole bunch of other guys that were talking about doing the same thing. They were like, it was just, yeah, he wasn't a very popular guy. I think he got into a bit of trouble towards the end, so it wasn't a big surprise.
Nice. And then what's like one of the greatest hopes that you have for the country that you'd been willing to give your life for?
Hmm. Well, I certainly hope we can keep, from a military point of view, I certainly hope we can keep our military strong and stave off any kind of conflict whatsoever. I believe in peace through strength, and it's definitely something we've always tried to do, and I hope they can continue to. Um, one nice thing I see, like last night I went to that Joe Walsh James Gang concert down in Columbus that he put on
Oh,
for the
nice.
vets. I
Yeah.
got to tell you that was
I
that
was
was a
supposed to go to that. I'm bummed I didn't make it.
oh it was darn near magical. Like, there were so many people there that were just they were everyone. It was like 15,000 people, and everyone was just super cool. And it was Nine Inch Nails, the Black Keys, the Breeders, and he did the James Gang stuff. He did his solo stuff. He played with Dave Grohl. It was just awesome show. But there was so much. They were bringing out his Joe Walsh's son, and he had brought out 6 different veterans, ones that needed service dogs, ones that were disabled, and they were basically letting them speak in between each show, kind of while they were setting up the stage, talking about where the money that they were raising, the different organizations that they were they're giving the money to. And it was very touching listening to everybody's stories. It was cool to see that they were raising all this money for Ohio vets. But what was really cool was the concert shirts for the event were super expensive, and I bet halfway through they came out and said, "Yeah, we're practically out of merch." Like, that's how strong the support was there. So it was really good to see. It was like kind of cool that there's so much support for veterans.
Yeah, and that, I mean, when I read that thing too, I was just like, man, that's really cool of Joe Walsh to get by. And I guess he does this thing annually, but
Hmm.
this was like the first year that it was like all like Ohio based,
Right.
basically bands, that were from Ohio, which I thought was amazing too.
Yeah, and it was a really good show. I mean, like with my art and my band, we've done charity events for veterans things all the time, and wounded warriors and things like that. But never seen anything like this. It was really cool to see such big bands come out and put on an amazing show. It was really good time.
Nice. And then like were a lot of the musicians like kind of like, you know,
Hmm.
saying nice things about the vets and everything too?
Yep, absolutely. And
Yeah.
especially Joe Walsh, he had I wasn't aware of it. I've always been a fan of the James Gang, and I've seen Joe Walsh before in concert. But he kind of came out, and they had like videos and stuff like that showing everything. But he was a before they had Gold Star families. He lost his dad in active duty when he was like a little over 1 year old, and back in like 1949. So he sat there and like told that whole story, and he was they were showing video of him telling the story with a bunch of uh, much older veterans sitting around him, and yeah, it was just a really touching evening all the way around. So
Oh,
he grew up
nice.
with, so he grew up without a dad, and basically told the whole story about what that was like. But he was saying when he first started playing music that that was what really mattered to him, was like he was like if my dad was still around, I'd be making him proud. And it was pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, I wish I could have made it down there, man. But things just didn't work out. I'll be going down there today, actually.
Oh
Heading
yeah.
down to Columbus today for Five Finger Death Punch because we're friends with that band, and my daughters actually love them. So me and my girls are gonna make the trip down there today. But we
Oh,
would
that's
have made
cool.
a weekend of it if we would have were able to get set up last night. But I don't know. I was like, when I went online, it looked like those tickets were pretty expensive, man.
We got really good seats and nobody standing in front of us, so we got to sit through the whole show and enjoy it. And it was like $75 a ticket, and
Oh, really?
the show was over 5 hours long. Like, and it flew by because it was really a good energetic show, and like each band put on like a full set. But so yeah, it was like over 5 hours. But yeah, the tickets were only $75.
Oh, man. So yeah, when I went on, I don't know what I was looking at. I must not have. I got to learn how to tweak the Live Nation app or Ticketmaster app or something because it was like I was seeing like $500 tickets
Oh,
and stuff.
jeez.
And
I
I was
wouldn't
like, all right, man. It's like I
I
really want
wouldn't
to
pay
see
that
it,
much to
but
see anybody. That's crazy. Yeah.
I got to take out a VA loan just so I can go support the vets.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like somebody was scalping there because yeah, my wife bought the tickets and they were $75.
Oh, man. All right. I wish I would have dug deeper, but oh well. Catch it
It's a
next
heck
time.
of a show for for that kind of money. I mean, I think people were paying more this summer to see Nine Inch Nails.
At Blossom, yeah.
Awesome, yeah, like quite a bit. I
Yeah, I
think
remember.
we were thinking of going, and then the tickets sold out pretty quick. But those tickets were a lot of money.
Yeah, I remember seeing that too. And then I was like, okay, well, is this like a carryover? I mean, I know it's for a good cause, but man, you know, I don't know. But I guess I must have not like filtered you know, the price thing down or whatever because it looked
I
like,
will.
I mean, it even looked like nosebleeds were like a couple $100. So
Oh wow! And it was absolutely packed. Like there was barely any empty seats. It was really full. So I
nice. And
mean,
Nine Inch Nails and everybody put like a full set on and everything.
oh yeah, it was really good. My eyes are still flickering from the Nine Inch Nails part. The light show was pretty wild. They were really loud too. But yeah, it was kind of neat. They had just an army of roadies up there. Every time a band ended, they drug everything off, brought everything back on, like set up all these lights, all this different, and every one was different. And you knew it was going to get interesting when they kept setting up two drum sets, and they would do a song or two, and Dave Grohl would come in and play drums with them, and that was pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like. And then what do you feel we can do about the to break the stigma of mental health and PTSD?
Well, I get to listen to this from a pretty good source on a regular basis. My oldest daughter, that's what she does for a living. She's been in the Air Force now 11, 12 years, and she counsels soldiers from all four branches with post-traumatic stress disorder, anger management, and drug and alcohol abuse. And that's what she's been doing since she first went in. I couldn't be prouder. I've got two military daughters, but my oldest, that's literally what she does for a living every day. So it's really, I'm sure there's always people that are going to slip through the cracks or not get caught in the net, but it's good to see that there's so much more emphasis being put on the mental health of our soldiers and our veterans now than ever before. I've got some friends that are much older than me that came out of Vietnam and just have the absolute worst stories. And one of them came out and actually did some bad drugs and stabbed a woman and went to prison for a long time right after he got out. And then I ended up working with him for years after he got out of prison. And I used to work with him quite a bit. And he would tell me his stories and it would just bring tears to your eyes. There's people that are going through so much. And just when my daughter tells me stories about some of the things that she hears from guys at work that she's counseling, it breaks my heart. But they're at least the military is pushing so much into getting everybody better as best they can. And I mean, she started off doing, outpatient veterans with PTSD and active duty ones. And now she actually counsels ones that are in a facility. Like they don't go home. They're in such rough shape that they are in a facility, and she's done wonders with them. And when I hear her stories, I kind of get a little bit of behind the scenes on how things are going. But compared to when you and I were in, and definitely the folks older than us, it seems like there's a lot more emphasis on helping them. And like I said, it's never going to be perfect, and I'm sure they could do more. But it's cool to see that it's getting in a better direction. And like I said, my daughter does it for a living for our military, and the stories that she tells me about work, I don't know how she does it, because it just brings tears to my eyes just listen to her talk about her work day. But there are a whole bunch of people like her that are committed to doing that, and it's hopefully, as to your question, hopefully it's getting better, because they are working on it.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely noticed and like you said, I mean, there's still more that can be done, but there's so much. They're doing so much more than they originally did. I mean, I was raised by a World War II Marine, and he was in the invasion of Okinawa. So I grew up around PTSD and, thinking, some days walking on eggshells, like what did I do wrong? What's going to set dad off, today, not getting it. And then having a lot of resentments growing up because I didn't understand it until I had to go get it myself, and they're like, all right, I get it now, Dad. And then I could, forgive him and have like a better relationship with him before he passed and everything. But yeah, they had nothing for them. It was just like, go home and go to work and bottle it up, forget about it, move on to the next thing,
Yep.
So I'm glad that they're doing so much more. And I know I've had some good experiences at the VA in mental health. I've had some bad ones, but I understand that we could hire and fire our therapists. We're not stuck. But then there's the other problem that I've noticed I've run into there is like when you finally find that one and you open up and you start building that relationship, all of a sudden the door's revolving with them too.
No, yeah.
They're either getting burnt out and leaving, or they're transferring to a different location, and it's just like then you got to start all over again. So I found the majority of my help outside of the VA, but yeah, I mean they have definitely come a long way.
Well, so, exactly. I'm sure it's not perfect, but it's just good to see that they're trying.
Yeah,
which is a whole lot more than they were doing in previous generations.
Yeah, exactly. And then, we were just talking about that concert and everything. And I know, you've been a big fan of music, um, and play yourself. But when did, do you remember like, some of your earliest experiences to music and what attracted you to it?
The music.
Yeah.
Um, well, you're gonna laugh, but I think it would definitely be my first concerts was at the Front Row Theater, and it was Sha Na Na, and I was in the fourth grade. I got to
Nice.
meet I got to meet the band and meet Bowser after the show,
Bowser. Sweet.
and I kind of had the itch ever since. I always wanted to be the bass man, but my voice was never low enough to sing that low. But I ended up playing bass, and it's been a lot of fun playing music all these years.
Nice. Yeah. And then, so you saw Shauna Na, that kind of attracted you to music. But like when did you decide to start like picking up a instrument and playing?
Well, I really didn't pick up an instrument until I was in my like mid to late 20s. I was like busy with. My first passion is building hot rods and classic cars, and so like from when I was 14 on, I've always had a car or two or three, and I'm always working on them, and so that pretty much monopolized all of my time. Um, it wasn't until I started having kids that you get a lot of downtime as a parent when they're little, where you're just keeping an eye on them, and they're just hanging out in the room, and rather than stick them in front of the TV, I bought an upright bass and restored it, and I would just put in a cassette and play along to the music, and my daughters always enjoyed that. So it's kind of like a fun way to watch your kids. And then I just started playing with some friends, and one thing led to another. But yeah, I didn't do it when I was a kid. I actually didn't pick it up until I was in my 20s.
That's cool, man. That's a cool story because, like, so many of us just put them in front of the screen and let the screen watch them, and
Yep.
you stayed interactive, and you're like, okay, I'm not, I can't. They're too little for me to bring out to the garage right now and work on cars and keep an eye on them. So let me do something interactive with them that kind of keeps your hands busy and everything too. So
Yep.
that's a cool story. And then, you got together with some friends and started playing. Like, when did you guys like put any bands together and start playing out?
Hmm. Maybe 15, 18 years ago, we were going over to a friend of ours' house and jamming with him, and he had like recording equipment. So we were basically writing a song every night, and everybody was just kind of throwing something together. And by the time it was done, we were having fun. And my wife used to sing in a bunch of Cleveland bands, so she's got a really good voice, and so we needed somebody else to sing because I couldn't sing all the songs and play at the same time because I'm a lousy bass player and I can't sing and play at the same time unless it's like super simple. And so I brought her in, and next thing you know, we kind of started a band, and we played out for a few years, and we were having a lot of fun. And then we decided to go a different direction. So four of us, the two married couples in the band, we broke away and started 45 Spider, and we've been playing for maybe 10, 12 years now.
So you guys still get together and play occasionally? It's
Well,
45 Spider?
we were playing pretty regular until COVID popped off, and then they you know how that went for live music, and
Yeah.
so we took a hiatus, but we've been practicing pretty hard and heavy for the last few months. We're working in another guitarist, so we've got two guitar players now, which we've never done before, and we're getting ready to actually start playing out again.
Oh, nice. And then, you know, speaking of like COVID and how that affected you, I know you were also a business owner for a while too.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess you're still, you run your own business out of your house now, but I mean, when you went into after you retired from like working with the sewer department and stuff, you
Mhm.
kind of went into business for yourself. Want to talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, sure. I guess uh, I retired from the city of Twinsburg. I ran their sewer maintenance department, and I was still young and always had a passion for cocktails, and so I opened up the Moonglow Lounge in Northfield Center, and it was a kind of like a speakeasy cocktail lounge, and we were doing great until our governor shut everybody down, and that pretty much did us in. I mean, I tried to stay open with their rules and their regs, but I didn't have a kitchen, so there was no food to go, and they were shutting everybody down at 10 o'clock for almost a year or so, and I was a late night joint, so it just basically decimated my business. So uh, I said I'd never start another business where the one idiot in a state house could destroy my life with a swipe of a pen. So I just opened up a as an artist. I do a lot of wood carving, and I carve tikis and stuff like that. And so I built another building on my property, and now I've got another shop out there, and I just basically go out and carve wood. I got
Yeah.
a lot of orders and specials. Like, yeah, it's all commission work, so it's kind of nice. I've got plenty of work to do, but yeah, I've just kind of been doing that since I'm kind of semi-retired, you know.
Yeah. But I mean, what like kind of like attracted the theme of the tiki bar for you? Was it those orders to Hawaii you never really got to?
No, not so much. It was like I said, our logo for the Moonglow Lounge was actually a werewolf that looks like Robert Mitchum, and that was Mr. Moonglow, and so we had it was just a classy it was like a classic cocktail lounge, but we did have a few tiki drinks on the menu. But
Okay.
I've been carving tikis for much longer. The my grandfather on my mother's side, he was stationed during World War II in the South Pacific, and he became enamored with the culture there. And when he came back, he actually retired from American Greetings, but he was a very good artist and really good wood, really accomplished wood carver. And so growing up, ever since I can remember, I was always hanging around with him in his wood shop and learning from him. And so when I got old enough to old enough to start doing it myself, I've been carving that kind of stuff as well. So I kind of got the wood carving thing from my grandfather.
Nice. And then now you say you've always kind of been into hot rods and working on cars and stuff like that. Um, what was something that originally attracted you towards that?
Well, I mean, my dad was a classic car guy. We've always had old cars. He raced stock cars in upstate New York in his youth, and um, he always had old cars. So I grew up restoring cars with him from ever since I can remember. And um, he had old cars all the way up until the day he passed last year. So um, I you know definitely got all my car stuff from him. But he was also a really good artist. So figure back in the '70s, he was doing airbrush art on vans and motorcycles and things like that, murals and that, and pinstriping. And so I got all that from him. So I picked up a brush and started pinstriping when I was a kid, and been airbrushing since I was little. So it's just that all that art stuff I basically got from my father.
Nice.
And
And
that's
then
why I still like building cars to this day. And I did the same thing with my daughters, and they're both pretty artistic, and they both have really cool classic cars. So, it's like they grew up in the shop with me. So, I mean, they've been pulling engines and been painting cars with me since they were little kids. So, I mean, they're pretty comfortable around the garage.
that's awesome, man. I love hearing the stories originally when they were too little to go out to the garage. I mean, you're interacting with them, playing bass, and um, you know, forming that bond with them there, and then they want to go out with dad and learn how to do that. That's with the cars when they're old enough. That's awesome, man. I wish I wish I could go back and I would have been more like, hands on, but I was in a different state of mind back then. Um,
For sure.
but I wanted to talk also about, one of the things that I've loved following uh, your story with, because, I've always kind of been like grew up like, watching A Team and, all the or like, big fan of the Punisher and all the people that had like these badass vans and stuff. And
Yeah.
I see you rehabbing the vans, and I guess so. You've been doing the artwork on the van on the outside as well. Then
Oh yeah.
I've been following. I think it's what Green Fuzz.
Yeah.
Your Green Fuzz van. You want to talk about like when vans kind of
Okay.
came into
Well, when I was a kid in the 70s, my mom and dad were vanners. And so in 1975, they went into the GMC dealer and bought a brand new van, proceeded to take it home and fully customize it. And they took me and my sister and went to van shows and van ins, and we were in that thing all summer long, and we had lots of fun with it. And it was all airbrushed up. My dad did like a real wild paint scheme on it. It was actually patriotically called the Spirit of '76 because he finished it on the bicentennial year in '76. So it was red, white, and blue, and it was airbrushed up really cool. But when so I've always, even though I've always had classic cars, I've always had at least like one van or one panel, something along that line, so that I could run in that crowd as well. Because honestly, between the hot rod scene and the van scene, the vanners are much more fun. There's a lot more partying. There's a lot less drama. It's definitely like a more relaxed, fun atmosphere than the hot rod scene. But I run in both. But I was always wanted to take and do a van where I got to just go crazy with all the '70s style airbrush techniques. And so I sold an old chopper that I had and took the money, and I found a $1,500 stripped out short second gen Ford that was from the West Coast, and had it shipped to my place. And me and my youngest daughter gutted it out. It had dead rats and dead mice in the back. It was like it had this crazy old custom interior in it, but it was just roached from the sun and a lot of neglect. And so we started from a bare shell, and she helped me basically do all the body work and paint. And on every panel, I just did all the different techniques, everything from flames to freak dots to lace work to endless lines and scallops. Just went crazy on it. When it was all done and finished, it ended up being pretty cool looking. So it was, for the last 5 years, I've been cruising that to a lot of van shows and stuff, and it's makes people smile.
Yeah, I love seeing the pictures. I have to come out sometime and see it in person sometime, and actually see all the work and everything you've done inside. But if you I've always kind of been like leaning more towards like, well, my goal, one of my dreams were too, like before COVID came, was, because my youngest just graduated high school, was just like waiting for her to graduate. And then I was thinking about either, selling my place here and just getting an RV and living in an RV and traveling, or even just like refurbing a nice van and traveling and being the guy that lives, in a van down by the river or whatever.
I'll tell you, it's got its pros and cons for sure. I took the Green Fuzz all the way around the country right after I closed down the cocktail lounge, and I spent a good month on the road, just bopping around from state to state, visiting friends, visit my daughter down in San Antonio. And so I kind of got to do, just nonstop vanning for a good solid month. And I tell you, you meet all kinds of people. You get to see just how amazing this country is, because it changes so much, from one place to the next.
Yeah.
And, especially during COVID, it was pretty wild how you would just cross an imaginary line and everything was different. You'd go from some states where you couldn't even walk into a bar without them contact tracing and taking down your name and your email address and your phone number, and masks up to your eyebrows. And then you go into the next state and they're like, COVID, what? Like they, no signs on the doors, no plexiglass hanging from the ceilings. It was just like a normal world. It was just like, wow. And all you're doing is crossing an imaginary line as you're tooling around the country in a van. It was definitely an interesting thing to try. But yeah, you get a van. I always tell people, get a van, because it's so much more fun. And there's always, room to sleep and room to take something home if you find something neat somewhere that you want to buy. It's like with a hot rod or a motorcycle, a lot of times you can't exactly, haul anything, but always
Yeah,
got room in a
exactly.
van. Always got room to sleep in a van. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of music, and I hit quite a bit of festivals and stuff, but it's always trying to find like lodging and stuff like that. And it's just like, man, if I had a nice decked out van, I could still go to the festivals. I could just sleep in my van, and
Yep.
I'm used to throw a little bit of water under the armpits for the day, and be good to go from my time in the military. So
Yep.
yeah, you
And
know,
we've been doing that for years. I can't tell you how many shows we've played that were like, big outdoor things or whatever. And we would just crash in the van, or we used to have a smaller camper. Now we've got a bigger camper, but we used to have a smaller camper. We used to pull with the Green Fuzz all the time. And my old red second gen Ford I had before that. And yeah, we would crash in that camper or crash in the van all the time after playing a show. 'Cause, you don't want to get all loaded up drinking and then go hit the road. But man, you got a van, you got a place to sleep it off.
yeah, exactly. And I remember, you're talking about, passing the imaginary lines and how different, so much of, of different states are in our country. Just, you know, a lot of people, it feels, I feel like, are just, they don't travel, and they think that this is it, and they stay in their bubble, and they think that's how the rest of the world is supposed to be,
Yeah.
and I had the pleasure of getting connected with a veterans group a few years back that called Higher Ground out in Idaho, and they fly out veterans with PTSD, and they do like recreational therapy with you. And we went horseback riding up in the Sawtooth Mountains, camped out for a week, and we're fly fishing, and making our own food, drinking water straight out of the mountain spring. It was amazing. So I connected with the guy over there that owns a hyperbaric chamber facility, and he gives veterans free treatments in that too. You just got to supply your own, you just got to pay for your own travel and supply your own food, and he lets you stay in his loft there.
Oh,
So I
cool.
was like, all right, I'm going to do this then. And I brought my daughters, and we drove cross country, and it seems like as soon as you get past like Chicago, man, it's a whole new America, you know?
Yeah, that's for
And
sure.
it was beautiful, man. We would stop at different little locations. Like I would look up like weird, like I didn't like doing like the full days driving, all the time. So I'd like break it up in like 4 hour increments, and then we would stay the night here, and then 4 hours the next day driving, stay the night there or whatever. And I think we went to the Stonehenge of cars or whatever. I forget what state that was in.
Oh, and
We
down in
stopped.
Texas with the Cadillac Ranch?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we stopped at all these like weird, weird locations, and did all, just experience things, and it was awesome. And we were out in Idaho for like a month, and
Hmm.
it was just, kids were holding the doors open for you. It was like Bizarro World, there,
Yeah.
no litter, people are cleaning up after themselves, no graffiti, you
I'm with
know.
you completely on that. I mean, being from Ohio like we are, Idaho is really far away, and I always just pictured Idaho and potatoes. I really
Yeah,
never gave Idaho a second thought. And right before COVID, we had a couple of hit songs on satellite radio on Sirius XM, and Little Steven's Underground Garage put us on tour, and we played a show in Idaho, and rolling into that place, and it was way up in the hills, way up in the mountains. It was one of the most beautiful states I've ever seen. Like you said, with
yep,
the water coming out of the mountains, and it's just so clear, and everything's so clean, and the people were so friendly.
yep.
I can't wait to go back. I want a vacation there and spend more time, because it was kind of a drag. We had to roll in, play a show, spend the night, and then hit the road and be in Vegas by the next evening. So it wasn't like I got to spend a ton of time, but it was so far up into the mountains that it was like 5,000 feet above sea level, and it was just getting up there with the tour bus was. It was just so beautiful looking out the windows and seeing what a beautiful state that is.
Oh yeah, for
Totally, totally
sure. Like,
blew me away. I had no idea.
yeah, my daughter has been like, wanting to go back. So we're gonna try and plan something here probably next summer,
Oh,
make
that's
it back
cool.
out there, because I still got some connections and friends out there. But it was we stayed there for a month, and on the way back home, we went through Yellowstone, we saw Old Faithful, and we stopped at Mount Rushmore and stuff, and saw the
Awesome.
Crazy Horse um monument and stuff too. And it was amazing, man. It was just like there's a whole nother, world out there. And You know, if we just sit there and stay in our little bubble and just watch the TV, we'll believe like, oh, this country's, you know, going to hell or whatever. But no,
Yeah.
man, it's a lot
Well,
of good.
$7 a gallon diesel will definitely keep you sitting home.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm waiting for these fuel prices to come back down because nothing I have gets good gas mileage. And
No.
it definitely
Oh,
is
are the
expensive
vans
traveling.
diesel and everything too?
My wife's got a Quigley, a big 4x4 Quigley van, Ford, an E350 that she's actually getting ready to sell because we're going to build another van. But yeah, I've taken that when I'm pulling a big trailer or pulling a car trailer, and it gets decent mileage. But man, diesel's just wicked expensive. I drove down to San Antonio to visit my oldest daughter, who's stationed down there with her husband, and I was taking her. She's got a 71 Maverick Grabber that's like it's a really, really nice muscle car, and it's built up quite a bit, that we restored a few years back. And I had been storing it for her because she lost her storage down in Texas and she didn't want the sun to ruin the car. Well, now she bought a house, so she's got a garage. So I was like, hey, I'll come down and visit. I'll bring you your car. And this was when diesel was like 5 something a gallon. I went down there like earlier this year, and I spent like $1,800 in fuel just to get down to San Antonio and back. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah,
So
it's like
yeah, it's tough traveling right now. Everything's just pretty expensive.
yeah, they're finding one way or the other to put a damper in any of our travel plans, but yet, they can jump in their private jets and go talk about saving the climate.
Yeah, yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, yeah. So what kind of goals you got going forward then?
Goals going forward. Um, I'm really looking forward to getting the band back out. That's definitely like a good release. It's like something that really feels good when you do it. I don't know, like how it's just brings me a lot of happiness. I enjoy creating music, and my wife and I wrote most of the songs in our band are either her or me, and we write together a lot. So it's kind of something cool that we get to do um, as a couple. And so we've been getting back into that again. And once we're back out to playing again, that's definitely going to feel awesome, because our last live indoor show was at the Beachland in January of 2020, right before COVID popped off. So it's going to feel good to get back out and get in front of a crowd again. As far as that goes, anything else? Uh, my wife's retiring next year for this year from her teaching job. So this is her last year teaching, and then she'll be a retired teacher. So hopefully that's going to allow us more time to travel and go see some more of those places, like go back to Idaho and definitely see some more states that we haven't been in yet.
Yeah, and get to actually spend more time. So
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
nice. So, we've been talking for like an hour, almost an hour here. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions I normally ask guests that I have on real
Mhm.
quick before we get ready to wrap up. But being a big music guy, who would you say are your top 3 musical artists?
Oh, geez. Top 3 musical artists. Hmm. Boy, that's a tough one. All right, you're gonna laugh because they're so different from one another, and there's probably a lot of music people that are gonna roll their eyes at this. But my top 3 are Steppenwolf, Deep Purple, and the Beastie Boys.
Nice. Left John on out, but
Well, I mean, they're basically a cover band.
and then here's a question you might I'm sure you'll enjoy. What class do you feel should be mandatory before graduating high school today?
Um, well, they have history, but they sure don't seem to be teaching it. Um, I remember sitting down with both my daughters with that ASVAB for Dummies book, just going over things, and it blew me away how much just common knowledge, history, especially about this country, that either these kids weren't taught or they somehow didn't retain. And that was a little unsettling to me. So I actually sat down and started going over history that they should have been taught while we were working on getting ready for them to take their ASVAB tests. And yeah, that I wish, but they do teach history. I just don't feel they're teaching it enough.
It seems like
Or
they're
teaching
changing
enough
it
of
as
it.
they go too, or erasing it,
Yeah, I mean, it, I agree with you there. I know there's some agendas behind what's being taught, and it's being married to a teacher. It's not coming from the teachers. It's stuff that's handed down to them that they're told to do a lot more often than not. But
Yeah.
but I would say if they couldn't make history a little bit more thorough, I think personal finance is something that really gets overlooked. And I'm fortunate both my daughters seem to have their heads screwed on, and we talked about this stuff over the years. But a lot of people, a lot of younger people that I know, where they're just it seems like they're coming into the world without a clue as to they don't even know how to create a credit score. And it's sort of it seems like there's something there that maybe balancing a checkbook and that kind of thing, and being able to set yourself up so that if you're going to pick a career, if you're going to pick a direction, if you're going to go to college, or if you're going to learn a trade. And I highly, highly, highly encourage people to push their kids to learn a trade in today's world. It just seems like they need to have a plan early on, so that so that they have a net, and they have a savings, and they have something that they can rely on if something bad happens in the world, where all of a sudden they need to rely on themselves. And same thing goes with unfortunately the trades. There's we used to have so many trades that they taught in school that they don't do now. And now, I mean, I know so many guys with body shops that can't find painters. I know so many guys with plumbing and electrical companies that can't get people to even come in as apprentices. And there's a huge shortage of young people wanting to get into the trades. And the years when we were in school, there was a whole lot of stuff that taught you that. And now it seems like they've pulled a lot of it away. And it's just not every kid is cut out for college.
Yeah, I agree. And then, who are 3 people who've inspired you, or you can credit for making you the person you are today?
I would have to say it'd be my parents and my grandfather. I have
Nice.
heavy influence in my family for sure.
And then, favorite toy as a child?
My favorite toy as a child would have to be what were those things called? It was like I think they were called SSTs. It was like a 1/24th scale car that had like a big rubber wheel in the middle, and you took a T stick with teeth on it, and you put it through a little square on the roof, and you pulled it, and there was one called
It's
the
fun.
Smash Up Derby,
Yeah.
where it was like 2 cars, and when they had a mechanism in them where if you hit the bumper, the doors would fly off, and the hoods and the tires would fly off, and it came with 2 ramps. My gosh, man, I wore out like 3 of those things. I was forever ripping cars across the kitchen floor, hitting ramps and jumping stuff.
Nice. It's awesome. And then, we talked a little bit about our service and then your daughters and stuff. Do you have any message for our military brothers and sisters that are currently serving overseas?
Message for our people are currently serving overseas. Stay safe. We have the utmost respect for what you're doing.
Nice. Man, well, hey, Kevin, it's been great catching up with you and getting to hear your story. I told you we'd get you got something to share.
Well, I tell you, it's sort of weird talking about yourself and answering questions about yourself. I gotta say that's kind of a first, but thank you, Bill. I appreciate it, and hopefully hopefully I didn't bore everybody to death.
No, man, it's all good stuff, man. It was great, and it was good for me to get to know more of you. And like when you guys get out and start playing, man, again, I'm definitely gonna make a show and we'll catch up, man, for sure.
Cool.
For people
Sounds good.
that you know, may be interested in you know, I don't know if I forget, does Green Fuzz have its own like social media, or does you know, or if anybody's interested in ordering some of your tikis or wood carvings and stuff, where would you send them?
So if you want to look at the Green Fuzz, all you have to do is hashtag the hashtag Green Fuzz or Green Fuzz Van, and you'll find me. My band's called 45 Spider, and my art name is Mortified. So my Instagram is Mortified 45 Spider. So it's I've got band stuff on there, art stuff on there. But as far as like my wood carvings and that kind of stuff, my business Instagram is House of Moonglow,
Nice.
and like I said, that's Tikis, and that's I probably got some videos for a while there. I carve a tiki with a chainsaw, and then back up a '50s car that has flamethrowers on it, and then cook the thing in the flames. It's kind of a wild live show that I do. So there's some videos and stuff floating around with that. Kind
Awesome,
of
man.
entertaining.
To check those out. Well,
And you
hey
can find
Kevin.
45 and you can find 45 Spider on Bandcamp and all that fun stuff. Download our music or watch our videos or whatever.
Sounds good, man. Hey Kevin, it was great talking with you, buddy. Good
Great
catching up.
talking to you too.
And we'll be in touch. You take care.
You too.